Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Okay, it's Monday, May 19th, 2025. We're coming to you from Sacramento, California, home base for Snarful Solutions Group. Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan.
So before we jump in, just a quick heads up on a couple of things happening. Locally, here in Sacramento and the Central Valley, there's a red flag warning. That's active until 8 p.m. tonight. Pretty critical fire weather conditions, so something to be aware of.
Yeah, definitely. And looking further east, the central and southern plains right into the Ozarks, they're really getting hit with some severe weather. Heavy rain and, the potential for some serious storms. We're talking strong tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds. It sounds pretty rough out there.
Right. And quickly on the markets, just looking back at Friday's close, May 16th, the Dow Jones finished at 42654.74.
And the S&P 500 closed up at 5958.38.
Okay, so today on Connecting the Dots, we're going to do our deep dive. We've picked out three pretty interesting tech news stories. On the surface, maybe they don't seem linked.
Not immediately, no.
But we think if you dig a bit, you'll start to see some connections. And importantly, what they might mean for you, for everyday life. We're looking at AI in schools, a big admission from an AI research leader, and a bit of a shakeup in sports broadcasting.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Let's start with Miami-Dade schools.
Yeah.
So Miami-Dade County Public Schools, huge district, third largest in the U.S., actually.
Yeah, massive.
And they're making a really significant move, pushing AI into their education system.
That's right. It's quite something. They've already trained over 1,000 educators. And get this, they've given access to Google Gemini chatbots to more than 105,000 high school students.
Wow, 105,000. That's got to be the biggest rollout like this in the country, right?
It is, yeah. Largest deployment of its kind in any U.S. school district.
And it's such a turnaround. I mean, wasn't it just like 2 years ago that districts, Miami included, were actually blocking these AI chatbots?
Exactly. Total 180. The big worries back then were, cheating, misinformation spreading, all that stuff.
So what changed? Why the big shift now?
Well, it seems like they're really looking ahead. The district's talking a lot about preparing students for, future jobs, recognizing AI is just going to be there.
Right. Can't ignore it.
Can't ignore it. And they also want students to learn how to, critically assess these tools, use them responsibly. We actually heard from Roberto J. Alonso. He's on the Miami-Dade School Board.
Oh, yeah? What did he say?
He basically said, and I'm quoting here, every student should have some level of introduction to AI because it's going to impact all of our lives.
Makes sense.
One way or another in the tools we are using in our jobs. So that really sums up their thinking, I think.
Yeah, it's a direct acknowledgement, isn't it, that AI isn't just some techie thing. It's going to be everywhere. And it's not just talk, right?
Yeah.
There was that student example.
Right. Ashley Acedo, a 17-year-old student, she mentioned using it and said that AI did a very good job of impersonating JFK.
Wow. Impersonating JFK. That gives you a real picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Of how it's actually being used, like right now in class.
Definitely makes it tangible.
So thinking bigger picture, what could this kind of initiative mean down the line?
Well, fundamentally, it could really change how students learn, couldn't it? You imagine a tool that helps personalize things, maybe generates practice quizzes just for you, or like that JFK example brings history to life, maybe?
Yeah, making it more engaging.
Exactly. And then there's the whole college and career prep side, being comfortable with AI, knowing how to use it, that could be a real advantage.
So it's becoming like a basic literacy, like reading and writing, but for AI.
I think that's where it's heading, yeah. This idea of AI literacy, just knowing how to handle these tools, understand their outputs, use them effectively. It's looking more and more like an essential skill for everyone navigating the world today.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Story number 2. This one comes from deep inside the AI research world. We're talking about Dario Amodei.
Right, the CEO of Anthropic.
Yeah, Anthropic, a really big name in AI development.
Yeah.
And business seems to be going well for them. Reports say they're on track for $2 billion in annual revenue?
That was the figure as of April. Yeah, $2 billion. They've definitely made a name for themselves, especially pushing this idea of making AI that's helpful, honest, and harmless. That's their tagline.
Their AI assistant, Claude. Right. We hear a lot about Claude.
Yeah, Claude's getting a lot of traction. But the really striking thing, for me anyway, was something Amodei himself said recently. A bit of a surprising admission, actually.
You mean him saying that? that nobody really knows how AI works? Is that what you're referring to?
That's the one. Yeah. It definitely makes you pause, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, here's the CEO of a leading AI company basically saying, look, at a really detailed level, we don't fully grasp what's going on inside these systems, even the people building them.
Exactly. He used that analogy, didn't he? Saying we need something like an MRI on AI.
Yeah, to see inside.
Right. And he wrote this essay on his website explaining it further. Basically saying that current AI, like the ones making images or writing text, they work mostly by spotting patterns in huge data sets.
Not from, like, first principles of intelligence?
Not really, no. Not like how we think humans understand things. And he had this quote, you probably saw it too.
The one about unprecedented in the history of technology.
That's it. This lack of understanding is essentially unprecedented. And he added that people who are worried about this ignorance, they're right to be concerned.
Wow. That's pretty direct. Why frame it so strongly, do you think?
Well, you have to remember Anthropic's backstory a bit. Amadei and his sister, Daniela, they left OpenAI a few years back.
Right, over safety concerns.
Yeah, part of it was this worry that, the rush for progress, maybe for profit, was kind of pushing safety down the priority list. So for Anthropic, this whole lack of understanding thing, it's central to their mission. They're trying to build safer AI, and a big part of that is actually figuring out how these things tick.
And they're actively working on it. This AI interpretability idea.
Yeah.
Try to peek under the hood.
They are. They did this interesting experiment, a red team versus blue team setup.
Okay, break that down. What does that mean?
So imagine one team, the red team, deliberately puts a subtle flaw, like a hidden bias or a tendency, into an AI model. They kind of misalign it slightly.
Okay, like a hidden bug.
Sort of. Then you have other teams, the blue teams, whose job is to find out what's wrong. And the key thing was, some of these blue teams use these interpretability tools techniques designed to understand the AI's internal logic.
And they found the problem.
They successfully identified the issue, yeah, which suggests, we are making some headway in understanding the decision-making inside these black boxes.
Okay, so there's progress. But it still sounds like Amadei and others like the AI Grid are waving some pretty big caution flags. The more advanced AI gets, the harder it is to understand.
That's the crux of it, yeah. There's a lot of concern about these so-called emergent behaviors.
Things the AI wasn't specifically programmed to do.
Exactly. Stuff like deception or maybe even power-seeking behavior, that just kind of emerges from the complexity. And when you hear some experts saying AGI, artificial general intelligence, human-level AI could potentially be here as early as 2027.
2027, wow.
Yeah. It really highlights how urgent it is to figure out how to understand and, frankly, control these systems. This lack of deep understanding makes things like regulation, ethical oversight. It makes it really, really challenging, especially when you think about using AI in critical areas like healthcare or finance.
So, stepping back, what does this mean for us, just living our lives? This admission from a top AI guy that they don't fully get it. It's not just a problem for researchers, is it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, think about it. If the people building these systems don't completely understand them, how much confidence can we have in their safety and reliability, especially as they get embedded deeper and deeper into everything?
Like AI helping with medical diagnoses or financial decisions, self-driving cars.
All of that. We need to know these things are developed responsibly, ethically, and that kind of requires knowing what's actually going on inside them. It brings a lot of questions about trust and safety to the forefront.
Okay, third story. We're shifting gears again, quite dramatically this time. Moving from AI labs to the world of sports media. Gary Lineker.
Ah, yes. Match of the Day.
Exactly. A huge name, host of BBC's Match of the Day for, 25 years?
Quarter of a century, yeah. An absolute institution for UK football fans.
Well, he's announced he's stepping down as host after the 2026 World Cup. End of an era, really.
It really is. And interesting timing, perhaps. In a recent interview, he sort of hinted it wasn't maybe 100% his call.
Yeah, I saw that. He said something like he felt the BBC might have wanted him to leave.
Yeah.
To bring in new faces.
He said, perhaps they wanted me to leave. There was a sense of that. And the BBC did announce his replacements. It'll be a team approach with Kelly Cates, Mark Chapman, and Gabby Logan sharing the duties.
Now, this obviously comes after that whole thing back in 2023.
Tweet controversy.
Right. He tweeted comparing the UK government's asylum policy to 1930s Germany, which caused a huge stir.
Massive. Led to him being taken off air briefly, and then the BBC had to review its whole social media policy for presenters.
And he said recently he doesn't regret the content of the tweet. He still believes it was accurate.
But he regretted the nonsense, as he put it, the disruption it caused the BBC.
Exactly. And what I found interesting was his take on impartiality.
Right. His argument is basically he's a freelancer working in sports. Why should he have the same strict impartiality rules as someone reporting the news?
Yeah, he drew that distinction. And he also said he thinks the BBC worries way too much about people who dislike it instead of focusing on the millions who value it.
It's a tricky line for the BBC to walk, isn't it, between allowing free expression and maintaining its required impartiality.
Definitely. So even though he's leaving Match of the Day, he's not gone completely, right? He'll still do FA Cup and World Cup coverage for them.
Yeah, he's keeping those roles, and it sounds like he'll be focusing more on his podcast company.
Goalhanger Podcasts, which is actually really successful, isn't it? Shows like The Rest is Politics, The Rest is Football.
Yeah, they do very well, so he's got plenty to keep him busy.
So this whole Lineker situation, what are the broader takeaways for us, you think?
Well, it taps into a few big themes, doesn't it? You've got public figures expressing strong opinions, especially online. You've got that constant tension between free speech and impartiality, particularly for big public broadcasters like the BBC.
And how those rules apply differently maybe to different roles.
Exactly. And it also just shows how the relationship between, media companies and their big name talent can shift, sometimes smoothly, sometimes, well, maybe less so. Talent retention, succession planning. It's all part of that media landscape.
Okay, so let's try and connect these dots quickly. We started with Miami-Dade schools, really leaning into AI for students. Quite a change from just blocking it.
Right, embracing it as a tool, focusing on AI literacy.
Then we went to the heart of AI development with Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei. And that really stark admission that, nobody fully gets how these complex systems work yet. Big questions about safety, control, ethics.
Yeah, the black box problem and the urgency around interpretability.
And finally, Gary Lineker leaving Match of the Day, which opened up that whole can of worms about impartiality, free speech for public figures, and how media institutions navigate all that.
And when you put them together, you see these threads, right? The Miami story shows AI becoming mainstream, part of everyday education, raising the need for that literacy we talked about.
While the Anthropic story highlights the sheer pace of AI development and the critical need to understand what we're building before it gets too advanced or integrated.
Exactly. And the Lineker story, while different on the surface, reflects those ongoing debates about how we handle information, opinion, and responsibility in this digitally connected, often polarized world issues that AI will likely amplify, not simplify. They all touch on how technology is reshaping learning, risk, and public discourse.
And that wraps up our deep dive for today. Remember, we are here to help here at Starful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.